Welcome to Zip News Year in Review. Today we cover conflicts throughout the year in Ukraine, Syria, Nigeria, Mexico and Israel and Palestine. First we look at Ukraine, where a fight for control of the Crimean Peninsula culminated in its annexation by Russia. It began in February when President Viktor Yanukovych fled the country during the Ukrainian Revolution. Russian President Vladimir Putin refused to acknowledge the new government, and within days pro-Russian forces had swamped Crimea and the eastern region of the Donbass, while armed Russian forces gathered at the border. The ensuing March referendum led to an overwhelming majority of Crimeans voting in favour of joining Russia. The referendum was ruled illegal and illegitimate by Ukrainian officials and Western nations. The annexation of Crimea was the first redrawing of borders by force in Europe since the Second World War. With talks of a new Cold War on the horizon, the UN condemned Moscow's actions. The conflict still continues in the nation's east, with the death toll reaching more than 4,300. In June, Ukraine crowned a new president, Petro Poroshenko, who promised reform and government accountability. With the conflict heading into its 10th month, the UN has warned of life-threatening conditions for Ukraine civilians. The conflict in Syria is extremely complex and difficult to summarise with any clarity. What began as an uprising against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad during the Arab Spring in 2011 has evolved into a 3-year bloody conflict. Al-Assad, backed by Hezbollah, has faced opposition from groups such as the Free Syria Army and the Islamic Front, backed by Saudi Arabia. Al-Assad was accused of using chemical weapons against his own people, a move condemned by Western nations who discussed methods of assisting the rebels. Al-Qaeda-affiliated militants began to take advantage of the unrest in the hope of creating a fundamentalist state. The most powerful opposition group to have emerged in the conflict is the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Declared a terrorist organisation by the UN, ISIS has taken its fight across the border into Iraq. They now occupy large areas of both countries. In June this year, the group declared a worldwide caliphate and began referring to themselves as the Islamic State. The death toll in Syria has reached more than 200,000, and the UNHCR estimates that 9 million Syrians have fled their homes, 3 million to neighbouring countries Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan and Iraq, and 6.5 million within Syria. The UN has contributed humanitarian aid throughout the crisis. However, food distribution has been suspended due to a lack of funding. $60 million in fundraising is required for the assistance to continue. Nigeria has been plagued by attacks from the militant Islamist movement Boko Haram since November 2013. Attacks have occurred mainly in the northeastern and central areas of Nigeria, where the group has been fighting for 5 years to establish an Islamist state. Boko Haram translates to the phrase, "Western education is forbidden." Suicide bombings have wreaked havoc throughout the country, with 2 incidents drawing particular attention. 45 people were killed in Maiduguri marketplace by 2 female bombers, and an attack on Kano's main mosque claimed many more innocent victims. However, the biggest incident to shock the country occurred in April, when over 200 girls were abducted from their boarding school. Global outrage led to the Bring Back Our Girls campaign, but progress on the issue has stalled. The abduction and massacre of 43 student teachers from a protest site in Mexico on the 26th of September shocked the world. The remains of the first student were found this month. Corrupt police are said to have been involved, officers allegedly turning the 43 students over to drug rings, with the government claiming not to know what was happening. Across the country, 100,000 people have been killed in gang-related violence since 2007. To another political hotspot now, Palestine and Israel. On the 30th of June, 3 Israeli teens, one aged 19 and 2 aged 16, were found dead after being abducted while hitchhiking home from school in the West Bank. 2 days later, a 16-year-old Palestinian boy's body was found in a Jerusalem forest after being abducted by an adult and 2 minors. Authorities say a 29-year-old man and 2 16-year-old relatives abducted the boy, beat and burned him in what has been alleged as retaliation for the Israeli deaths. All 3 have been indicted in his death. During clashes that ensued, the young boy's cousin was beaten by Israeli police, who have suspended the officer accused of the act. The Israeli government blamed the Islamic militant group Hamas and started an intense anti-Hamas airstrike operation in Gaza, in which hundreds of people died. I'm Amy Jobson. Thanks for watching this special edition of Zip News.